Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by Good Marketing and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So I think we're all at the point now where we understand that artificial intelligence is being incorporated into all manners of life. And here to share how AI is used in real estate and to give a general update on the status of residential real estate in Michigan is the owner of Keller Williams Advantage and Team, Mr. Chris Silker. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So just to kind of set the table, how long have you been practicing residential real estate and what made you decide to get into this field?
We're going on 13 years. I used to be an educator, a teacher, and real estate became an opportunity for me in middle of 2012 when it became apparent to me that education just wasn't the right fit for me. It wasn't the spot for me. And yet empowering people to make good decisions and transferring information and using my communication skills in a positive way were important to me. And real estate was a great fit. And I've been fortunate to work really hard and build a great business in that field.
You know, I would say that as a layperson, you know, I'm not in the residential real estate space, but it seems like there are a lot of residential realtors out there. But I read a statistic somewhere that talked a little bit about how kind of sharp the point is, right? That, you know, the 80-20 rule, people talk about, you know, 80% of the, results come from 20% of the work, or that type of a metaphor. But it seems like that's also kind of the case. And you're one of those performers, right? I mean, there are a lot of people that hang the sign, but you're steeped in this and you really produce a lot of outcomes. Is that correct? That is absolutely correct. And real estate, for better or for worse, is a very, very sharp point. Nationwide, 71% of agents did not have a transaction last year. That's amazing. It is amazing. And you also have to understand that a vast majority of agents do it on the side. They're doing it part-time. They're doing it for their own investment. They're doing it for friends or family. And that's not good, bad, right, or wrong. I'm not here to judge that production. And yet I can also tell you that particularly in our market, almost 40% of business transacted by units and even more by volume are done by less than 5% of agents, 5% of teams in our greater Lansing area. Wow. I mean, that's impressive. And Keller Williams is a pretty powerful brand. And I know you've found a lot of education and grounding in their model. Kind of, can you give us a nutshell what the Keller Williams value proposition is? Their value proposition is really twofold. First and foremost, they empower education. They create opportunities for agents to learn and to transfer that learning to others to share and build the best business practices, models, systems available in the industry today. Beyond that, they have really morphed into a technology company. They have created a customer resource management system called Command that is bar none the best in the industry, and it's available only at Keller Williams. That has created a lot of leverage and opportunity for my business as well as the business of agents in Keller Williams worldwide. That support, that leverage, and that educational opportunity really spoke to me and created the opportunity that allowed me to build the business I have today. Right on. Okay. And so we're recording this in early February of 2026. And again, as a layperson, it seems like there's been a shift over the last maybe 12 to 24 months where houses aren't necessarily flying off the shelf in bidding wars and people buying well above the asking price. But how much has it leveled out? Can you give us a thumbnail sketch of the state of where things are right now in the market? Sure. Well, what you're going to hear in the news is that real estate is slowing down significantly. Nationwide, we're looking at 133 days on average for market exposure before going under contract. That is a more buyer-centric market. Okay. In our hyper-local greater Lansing area, we still have a pretty significant listing shortage, an inventory shortage, not enough homes for the buyers that are in the pool looking to purchase and own homes. And so we do have still a pretty fast, competitive market, particularly for homes closer to the median price point of $230,000 to $250,000. Quality move-in ready homes are, of course, the most desired. Yep. As we climb up in higher price points, get further away from amenities, those days on market do extend. Negotiation does get a little bit more equitable, but I would say overall in our market, sellers still have the majority of control. Got it. Okay. And is there any, so there's also chatter about what 26 is going to look like from a Fed standpoint and interest rates. If I remember correctly, you might have mentioned on a prior show that a quarter point or half point or whatever maybe shouldn't be a decision-making factor. Or what do you think the interest rate adjustments are going to do to the market if they happen? Well, that's really a twofold question. Number one, is interest going to change? Probably not a lot. There are a lot of political implications, a lot of changes in the Fed, changes in leadership.
all of that creates market instability.
Yep.
And mortgage rates really depend on stability, predictability. And I don't see a scenario this year that creates enough momentum to drop rates significantly to make a large buying power shift in our market. In terms of when you should look at purchasing a home, interest rate really shouldn't be your primary objective. Unless it is truly an affordability issue and a lower interest rate brings you into a market that otherwise is out of reach. If you're capable and able to buy at today's interest rates, you absolutely should do so, because the moment rates do come down, prices just go up exponentially. Your cost always goes up as you wait.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that home prices are going to continue increasing, but the cost of your purchase almost inevitably becomes more expensive because of the play between interest and total asking price.
Got it, right. Because if interest rates come down, maybe there are more people going into the market and people hold tighter on your price. So whether you're saving $200 in a monthly payment,
but paying $20,000 more,
right?
Really
and you spread it out. At the end of the day, don't wait on pulling the trigger because you're hopeful that you'll get a quarter point off your interest rate if you hold out 6 more months.
Hope is rarely a great plan.
Right. Good point. Good point. All right. Well, I led a little bit with the AI stuff, and I was fascinated to hear how steeped you are as a professional, because I think of, residential real estate is, you network, you meet people, you put out, your advertising, and you get listings, and then you do showings and you transact and everything gets done. And again, that's certainly probably what happens, but your ability to build your brand and automate a couple of things because of AI is intriguing to me. So why don't you talk a little bit about how you got started? How do you know where to begin? I mean, or how did you begin with residential real estate and using AI to help you out?
My team and I really dove into AI pretty significantly early last year. There was a lot of chatter nationwide. The absolute truth is that my industry and the way I choose to run my business is 100% relational.
Okay. Yep.
And what this really does is creates a layer of leverage that allows me to build deeper, better, more quality relationships with the people I care about and the people that I want to work with in a way that I couldn't do it without this support. So it's not a replacement. It's not a decision-making tool. It's a leverage tool that deepens my thinking and gives me perspectives that allow me to build better relationships, give better data, see better trends, and be a better professional in my industry.
Wonderful. Before we unpack that, because that's powerful stuff, I want to give a shout out to my friends at Wagoner Financial. Whether you're just starting out planning for retirement or anywhere in between, Wagoner is here to help you make smart financial decisions. They offer comprehensive customized planning, from investment strategies and tax solutions to insurance, accounting, and estate planning. Wagoner is dedicated to supporting you, your family, your business, and your future. Use their unique team approach and maximize each member with their specializations. They ensure that there's someone who will always be on hand to answer your question. Schedule a consultation by visiting wagoner-financial.com or give them a call at 517-853-3367. So you talked a lot about the ways that you use AI, and there's a lot of value add to that. In my mind's eye, I could see how a listener might be like, well, if he's using AI as a shortcut and not really doing all the work on my behalf, I want someone who really is just getting in there, getting dirty, and doing the work that is required to get my business or get me to finish line. But that's not the case. I mean, right? So so talk about how you use specific, maybe even a fictitious scenario about how you use AI to help a client directly.
So what AI can do really well is, number one, I want to be very clear. It doesn't think like a person. It sounds like a person when it relays information back to us, but that doesn't mean it's thinking that way.
Yep.
All it's doing is predictive analytics based on language speech patterns and on available data. So it's really good at identifying patterns. So a real life example, when we are working on negotiating lease structures in commercial real estate, which I don't do a ton of, but because I don't do a ton of it, I needed to do extra research, extra preparation to make sure that I'm giving my client the best deal possible. So we're running different queries across multiple different AI strategies, search engines essentially, where we can evaluate and cross-reference rent requests in a specific area. In this instance, Woodward Avenue of Royal Oak. So we're really looking at this very specific 6 to 8 block radius of this area and trying to identify where the deal structure is to negotiate the best per square foot lease beyond that, it helps me look at what are the multiple negotiation points in a contract that can create wins for my client. Maybe it's not price per square foot, but maybe we want to look at where we can negotiate the nets or the insurance, the exit strategy, or even laddering the deal across multiple years so that we can have a lower upfront or a lower overall cost depending on the needs and wants of my client.
Right on.
And that really helps me build the best case negotiation strategy to get my client to the end of the table on signing day where they're really happy. And in this instance, we were able to negotiate over $100,000 in lease savings over 5 years from the asking price. And so that's very significant.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it creates not just those thinking points, but the data to support that logic so that when you're presenting that offer to the other side, it's a much different conversation than just an ask.
Right on. Okay. And how much time do you spend, would you say, in an average week or a month or whatever, building your own brand?
I do have a great team that does a lot of that work for me. And so that's a director of marketing in Travis Houghton, who's a phenomenal human being who leads two of my content creators who both happen to be college students that are doing great work in the marketing world and have amazing futures ahead of them. They create content that is bar none, best in the industry as far as I'm concerned. And they also use AI at my request, and everything that we do goes through a human decision-making process.
Right.
But it does create ideation. It does create content. We use it to turn video, just still photos into more engaging video content. We have avatars of me that have been trained in my voice that can create content that really allows me to be in two places at the same time.
Right.
That are not sharing information, that aren't sharing advice, but are creating brand consistent content that creates engagement so that I have the opportunity to serve more people with the best service possible in a deeper relationship than I would be able to if I were spending 8 to 10 hours creating content a week rather than learning market data and building relationships.
And I think that's the punchline, being able to use, artificial intelligence to help you do things, at least the first 80%. Like you said, everything goes through a human being before it gets out there. But if you don't have to spend that kind of workload creating your own marketing content, per se, that gives you more opportunity to just be great at your job, whether it's that continuing education or deepening a relationship or doing research to get someone to the finish line.
We all have a finite energy spectrum.
Right.
It just depends on where we want to spend that energy. And I would much rather make sure that I am the master of the data, that I know the market, and that I have a great relationship with my client that is establishing trust and respect so that we can have a great transaction and really set them up for success.
Right on. And would you say your industry as a whole has begun kind of adopting some of those best practices? I would consider you one of the younger residential realtors out there, and I got to believe there are old people like me or a little older that have been in the industry for a long time who probably aren't leaning into this and not getting some of the advantages out of that.
I think like any industry and any spectrum of people across the board, you're going to have those that are resisting, pushing back, not wanting to embrace the changes. And I would say AI adoption has actually been unique in that older generations, older people are adopting it a little bit more because it's conversational. The learning curve is almost more accessible than some of the other tools in real estate and in business than others. You're literally just asking it questions and then building your growth patterns from there. It will teach you how to use it at a pretty high level. And so I do see more adoption of this particular tool across generations in my industry than many others.
That's great. That's great. I want to shout out to my friends at the Kirk Byron State Farm Agency. Today's podcast is sponsored by our good friends at the Kirk Byron State Farm Agency. Their mission is to put the customer first when helping them plan for the risks of everyday life, to prepare for the unexpected, and to realize their financial goals. Kirk and his team build value and confidence in your auto, home, life, health, business insurance, and financial service needs. Kirk's always looking for the opportunities to help customers in mid-Michigan and around the country. Everyone has insurance needs, and you do well by calling my friends at Kirk Byron State Farm Agency to hear what their experts have to say. And you can get in touch with them by calling 517-349-3830 or look them up at sfbyrons.com. You will not regret it. So it seems logical that if you're digging into the whole AI model and using that for your business acumen and stuff, that might spill over into, it's like, wow, maybe I can use this to help my life move in the right directions or help me think through another personal matter or whatever, how have you incorporated AI as you've wandered down this journey? And what's your message to our listeners for those who are reluctant to getting involved, what kind of value have you gotten out of it?
Enormous. I want to kind of use that opportunity to circle back to a question you gave me earlier, which was how did and why did we really get into this? And I kind of got into this more personally before I got into it professionally.
Got it. Okay.
It was just something that people have been talking about, and I wanted to explore it. As I saw the value, and as I heard my clients and my customers start talking about and asking questions that were not common questions, much deeper, higher level questions maybe than I get on a regular basis from residential clients. Maybe my investors might have that, but I'm starting to get price per square foot questions from my residential clients that's not been a normal conversation piece. That's because they're using these tools. They're using that leverage. They're deepening their knowledge. And so that was an opportunity for me to really start exploring and diving in and learning what they're getting from these tools so that I can understand what that data is, what that message is, where it's right, where it's not right, so that I can guide, advise, and correct where necessary as they're getting this information, because it's not a perfect tool.
Right.
It doesn't think like a person. It doesn't have common sense reasoning. It has pattern recognition and analytics. And they're two very different things. So it can fail on simple logic tasks, puzzles that humans handle really easy. But because that data is presented in a confident way,
right,
because of the voice or however you've trained it to speak with you, it can be misleading. And so I had to understand really very quickly what that data set is, what that information presentation is to my clients and customers, so that when I hear them speaking to me in that way, I can go, okay, I know where this is coming from, and let's make sure that you're getting this in the right way. And I can give them guidance, advice, and I need to know and understand that tool in order to be able to do that. So that's really where I started. In terms of how I use it personally, it's integrated a lot of different areas of my life, from my health and my fitness, travel planning. I use it a lot in consumer good comparisons, deal finding. It's a great cross-referencing tool. It can scan a lot of different resources and knowledge bases really very quickly. It has full access to Reddit threads, so I can get human reviews, human insights, human voice. That would take me hours and hours and hours of research and time to get, and it can condense that and summarize that very quickly so that I can make my decisions much more powerfully. One of the coolest business tools is creating a board of directors. And so asking it to mimic people that I respect, admire, that I view as kind of like non-official mentors, right? Both in finance and ethics and investment. I have 5 different directors that I've created that when I have a business decision that I'm struggling with, I give it the conundrum that I'm looking at. I give it as much information and data about why this is a difficult decision for me. And each one of those gives me a different lens and viewpoint as a reflection back to deepen my thinking. And maybe that's not for everyone, but it's not making a decision for me. It's giving me different lenses, viewpoints, allowing me to avoid blind spots or weaknesses that I can see, so that when I make that decision, I have a lot more confidence and commitment to see that decision through.
Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because this is just me being naive on that, but how does that work? So you've got kind of artificial personalities of 5 different types of board members, and you give them all the same stuff, and you get 5 different responses based on what their their area of expertise and the style in which they tend to think about those types of things?
Absolutely.
That's unbelievable.
Anytime a public persona has conversations on any kind of media outlet, anytime they're publishing content, that all gets stored in reference, right? So the most, I think probably the best example here is a guy like Sanjay Patel, right? Finance genius, super, super bright, way smarter than me, of course. And so when I'm looking at a struggle of an investment decision, or do I invest my business resources in this area versus this area, I give it that details, and it kind of runs it back through the decision-making paradigms that it's learned through the analytics of the content created by Sanjay, and spits that back to me, and like, this is what Sanjay's advice might be. If he were thinking of this as your problem, this is what his feedback and questions to you would be. And it's never, here's what you should do. It's here's what you should think about. Are you looking at it this way? Here's your potential blind spot. And that's been very powerful, and it's created some really insightful opportunities. And I do the same thing personally. I record my journal entries here. And again, maybe that's not for everybody, although statistics show about 80% of AI users admit or readily state that they're using it for therapy. Now, that might not be the best path.
Right, yeah.
And the appeal of that is the voice back to you is designed to be positive. So people get a lot of affirmation. They feel really seen. And it's just a computer. It's just analyzing and predicting what you're looking for. But you can also create guardrails. You can create points. So I might have a running journal that is no nonsense. I want very factual. I don't want any inference. I don't want any assessment. I don't want anything other than blunt facts back to me. I might have another that is, I'm looking for patterns in my thinking that can help me make better decisions later, that I can reference and cross-check. I'm stating, here are my goals, here are my objectives within this space, and anytime I ask for feedback, you're going to run it through those objectives, those values first, and give it back to me. And again, these are just ways to deepen and increase my thinking and increase the speed of my decision-making and my follow-through on those decisions.
That's amazing. I am not anywhere near at that level, and maybe I'm way behind. But what you are talking about seems pretty impressively deep into using this for all the good things.
I hope so. And I also check this against my very human mentors and advisors and make
Right.
sure that I'm on the right track and that I'm not going too far in any one direction, right? Because balance is the essence of life.
Right.
And yet it's a tool, and it's a very powerful tool, but I always have to cross-check that with my gut. Does this feel right? Does this seem like it's doing what's best for me? Step away from it, take breaks from it, and make sure, because again, it's not perfect. It's not a decision-making engine.
Right.
And I keep coming back to that because it's so important.
Well, and I think the way you've couched that, if I'm a listener and say a consumer or even an existing client of yours, I think I'd be put kind of at ease hearing this interview of you talking about how you incorporate AI into your life and into your professional world as a means of just being a balanced professional and human and service provider, and not using it, this big scary tool, to take shortcuts and get me to the finish line, or be more manipulative because you're using, I don't know. Like I wonder about that, and I think that there's a lot of opportunities to try to differentiate yourself against the noise of other residential realtors, and again, who knows? Maybe 60% of the other realtors are doing similar things to yours. But I think that it's an interesting message to see how AI is being incorporated to you as a person, but then also professionally. Is there anything else that I've kind of teed you up for that you haven't been able to, or I haven't teed you up for, to be able to deliver either about the market or AI for the listeners to kind of finish up thinking about?
I think, again, like just a real world example of one of the ways in which I use it that was powerful for me that is worth talking about.
Sure.
Is, I downloaded my calendar from last year, my 2025 Google Calendar, just downloaded a straight file, uploaded that, and asked it to analyze and tell me what my priorities were based on where I was spending my time. And it showed me where my family time was. It showed me where, and now this is because I built my calendar out that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But it was able to really highlight where I was spending time out of alignment with what I intended my values to be. And that allowed me to then draft and create a calendar that was much more succinct, much more powerful, much easier to follow for me, that was in alignment. And I found a lot of joy and a lot of peace in being able to know that I'm winning my day by following a calendar with much less noise and much more efficiency.
That's fantastic. Wow. I got to tell you, there's a lot to reflect on there, and a lot of catching up that I need to do, because I think there's a lot of balance that I could probably find by using some of these tools. So thank you for being vulnerable, sharing some of the ways that you've used this, not only personally and professionally, and to give us a status on the update of residential real estate here in Michigan. So how can people learn more about Chris Silker and Advantage in Team if they ever need your services? AdvantageInTeam.com is probably the best place to start. Give me a call anytime at 517-242-9251. Love to hear from you and love to talk about AI or the market. Wonderful. Well, we've been speaking with the owner of Keller Williams Advantage in Team in Okemos, Michigan, Mr. Chris Silker. Wilker, really appreciate you being on the show again and sharing some of your wisdom.
Pleasure as always. Thank you, Chris.
All right. And I'd love to give a final shout out to all my loyal sponsors: Wagoner Financial, Good Marketing, Triterra Environmental, Kirk Byron State Farm, Michigan Rise, and the attorneys at Foster Swift. All fantastic people worth the call. And if you found the show as a one-off, I want to remind you to follow and subscribe to Michigan Reimagined on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and pretty much anywhere you find your podcasts. This is Chris Buck signing off for Michigan Reimagined.